The workshop sat in the lowest level of Neva 7 station, where the air always smelled like metal and oil. Most people never came down here. The lights were dim, the corridors were narrow, and the noise from the machines never stopped. But for this place was home. She had worked here for 6 years now. Every day she fixed armor and weapons for travelers who passed through the station. She asked no questions. She took payment in credits or trade goods. She kept her head down and her mouth shut. That was how she survived. Was 28 years old, but her eyes looked older. She had short black hair that she kept tied back when she worked. Her hands were covered in small scars from years of handling sharp metal and hot tools. She always wore long gloves that went past her wrists, even when the workshop got hot. Nobody asked why. Nobody cared enough to ask. Her apprentice, a young man named, was organizing parts on a shelf when the door opened. Cold air rushed in from the corridor outside. Both of them looked up. The creature that entered had to bend down to fit through the doorway. He was over 7 feet tall, with gray skin that looked like stone. He had 4 arms, each one thick with muscle. His eyes were yellow and had no pupils. He wore damaged armor that covered most of his body, and he carried a helmet under one of his lower arms. Took a step back, did not move. Whispered, his voice was shaking. They were famous across the galaxy. Before humans ever left Earth, they had conquered 12 star systems. They were warriors born and raised. Their entire culture was built on combat and honor. They looked down on what they called soft species, and they were known for their terrible temper. Most shops on Neva 7 refused to serve customers. Too much risk, too much trouble. They walked forward. Each step made the floor shake slightly. He stopped in front of his workbench and placed his damaged armor on the table. Up close, she could see the armor was old. Very old. The design was different from modern equipment. There were symbols carved into the chest plate that she did not recognize. "I am," the said. His voice was deep like thunder far away. "This armor belonged to my grandfather's grandfather. It was damaged in a raid last month. I need it repaired." Looked at the armor. She picked up a small tool and gently touched the damaged section. The metal was warm. It had an energy weave built into it, a technology that they had stopped using decades ago. "Most technicians would not know how to fix this," she said. Her voice was calm and quiet. "The alloy is not made anymore. The energy weave uses an old pattern." Leaned forward, his yellow eyes studied her face. "Can you fix it or not?" Ran her fingers along the edge of the damage. Her mind was already working, remembering techniques she had not used in years. Techniques she had learned in another life. "I can fix it," she said. "It will take 3 days, the cost will be high." Nodded. "Credits are not a problem, do it right." He turned to leave, but then he stopped. He looked back at her with a strange expression. "You did not ask any questions. Most people want to know why I cares about old armor. They want to know about the battle. They want to hear war stories." Did not look up from the armor. "I do not care about your stories. I only care about doing my job." Something changed in his eyes. It might have been respect. He said nothing more and walked out of the workshop. Let out a long breath. "I thought he was going to kill us. Why did you agree to help him? Are dangerous." "Everyone is dangerous," said. "Now bring me the micro-welder. I need to start on the inner layer." The next 3 days passed slowly. Worked on the armor whenever she could, often late into the night when had gone home. The work was difficult, but it felt familiar in a way that made her chest tight. She had done repairs like this before, long ago, when the stakes were much higher. Sometimes came to watch. He sat in the corner of the workshop, silent, his 4 arms crossed over his chest. He studied her movements with those yellow eyes, ignored him and kept working. On the second day, something happened. Was leaning over the armor, using a fine tool to reconnect the energy weave. The work required precision. She had to hold her arm at an awkward angle. Her sleeve started to slide down her arm, and she did not notice. For just a moment, her inner wrist was exposed. There was a mark there, a tattoo. It showed a black circle containing a small image of Earth, the old blue planet that existed only in memories now. A single sword crossed through the planet. Saw it, all four of his hands went still. The sound he made was something his translator could not put into words. It was recognition. It was shock. It was something close to fear. Pulled her sleeve down quickly, but it was too late. "You are Earthborn," said. His voice was barely a whisper. Did not answer. She kept her eyes on the armor. Her hands were steady, but her heart was beating fast. "The seal on your wrist," continued. He stood up slowly like he was approaching something sacred or something dangerous. "I know what it means. My grandfather told me stories. I thought they were just myths, tales to scare young warriors." Finally looked at him, her face showed nothing. "The armor will be ready tomorrow. You should go." But did not go. Instead, he sat down across from her workbench. His massive body took up most of the space. He placed all four of his hands flat on the table. "When I was young," he said, "my grandfather would gather us around the fire. He would tell us about his wars, his victories. He was proud of everything he had done. But there was one story he told differently. His voice would go quiet. His eyes would look far away." Said nothing. She kept working, but she was listening. "He told us about a species from a small blue planet. When the Dominion came to harvest them, everyone expected an easy victory. The humans were primitive. They had barely left their own world. They had no real weapons, no fleet, no allies." Paused. "But they fought anyway." The workshop was silent, except for the hum of machines. "My grandfather said the war was supposed to last 6 months. It lasted 11 years. The Dominion lost more soldiers on that one planet than they had lost in 100 conquests. The humans did not just fight. They learned. They adapted. They took Dominion technology and made it their own. They invented new ways to kill that no species had ever imagined." His hand stopped moving. She stared at the armor in front of her. "The Dominion won eventually," said. "They burned the planet, but they never celebrated. My grandfather said it felt like defeat, because even after everything, the humans would not break. They would not surrender. They made the Dominion pay for every inch of ground in blood." Slowly looked up. Her eyes met his. "Your grandfather was right," she said. "It was not a myth." Leaned forward. "The seal on your wrist, the Earthborn seal, it was given to the soldiers who held the final line, the ones who let the colony ships escape. They said only a few hundred survived." 847, said. Her voice was flat, empty. "Out of 10,000. A long silence filled the workshop. Looked at her differently now. Not with suspicion, not with anger, with something that might have been awe. "I thought the Earthborn were all dead," he said. "Hunted down after the war." Pulled her gloves over her wrists. "Some of us learned to hide." She turned back to the armor. The conversation was over, but did not leave. He stayed in his seat, watching her work, thinking about old stories and ancient wars, and wondering what else the quiet mechanic was hiding. Came back the next morning, and the morning after that. He did not ask for his armor. He sat in the same corner and waited for her to speak. She did not speak. She worked in silence, her hands moving with skill that seemed impossible for a simple mechanic. On the 4th day, he finally asked the question she had been waiting for. "Why did you survive?" Stopped working. She put down her tool and looked at him. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she pulled off her gloves and set them on the table. "You want to know about Earth," she said. It was not a question. "I want to understand," replied. "My grandfather feared humans. He conquered 12 worlds and feared nothing, but he feared your species. I need to know why." Sat down on her work stool. She looked at her hands, at the scars and calluses. Then she looked past them at something far away. "I was 16 when they came," she said. The memory hit her like cold water. Suddenly she was not in the workshop anymore. She was back on Earth in a city called Watching the Sky Turn Red. The Dominion arrived without warning. One moment the sky was blue and clear. The next it was filled with ships, thousands of ships, so many that they blocked out the sun. The first attacks came minutes later. Entire cities vanished in fire. Young had been at school when the invasion started. She remembered running through the streets with her younger sister, holding her hand tight, not understanding what was happening. Their parents were already gone, killed in the first wave. They never even had time to say goodbye. The Dominion expected us to surrender, said, her voice distant. Every other species they conquered gave up within weeks. They had done this hundreds of times. They thought humans would be the same. But humans were different. Within the first month, resistance groups formed across the planet. Soldiers, scientists, farmers, teachers, anyone who could hold a weapon, anyone who could build a bomb, anyone who refused to die on their knees, and found their way to one of these groups. It was led by a man named Captain. He was tall, thin, with gray hair even though he was only 40 years old. Before the invasion, he had been a military trainer. Now he was something else, a legend in the making. Captain was the first person who told me I could fight, said. I was just a scared girl. My sister was even younger, but he looked at us and saw soldiers. He saw survivors. The training was brutal. Learned to shoot, to build explosives, to move without sound. She learned to kill. At night, she held close and promised her they would survive. She made that promise every single night for 11 years. The Dominion had better weapons, continued. Better ships, better armor. They had technology we could not even understand, but we learned. We captured their equipment and studied it. We took it apart and built it again. Within 2 years, we had weapons that matched theirs. Within 5 years, we had weapons that scared them. Listened without speaking. His yellow eyes never left her face. Humans adapt, said. That is what makes us dangerous. We do not accept limits. We do not believe in impossible. The Dominion had fought for 1,000 years and they thought they knew everything about war, but we showed them new ways to die. The war dragged on. The Dominion sent more soldiers. Humans killed them. They bombed cities. Humans rebuilt underground. They poisoned water supplies. Humans found new sources. Every attack made the humans angrier, smarter, more determined. But war always has a cost. Was 20 when she died, said. Her voice cracked for the first time. It was during the evacuation. The colony ships were leaving, carrying as many people as they could. 10,000 soldiers stayed behind to hold the line, to give the ships time to escape. She remembered that day with terrible clarity. The sky was dark with smoke. The ground was shaking from explosions. She was running toward the evacuation point when the Dominion broke through their defenses. Pushed her forward. Run, her sister said. I will hold them. I tried to stay, whispered. I tried to fight beside her, but Captain pulled me away. He said I had to survive. He said someone had to remember. Held her position for 17 minutes. 17 minutes that let 3 more colony ships escape. When she finally fell, she had killed so many Dominion soldiers that her body was buried under their corpses. The seal on my wrist, said, touching the mark, was given to those who fought in the final line. 10,000 soldiers. Only 847 survived. We scattered across the galaxy. We hid. We took new names and new faces, because the Dominion never stopped hunting us. Finally spoke, his voice was rough. Why do they hunt you? The war is over, Earth is gone. Looked at him with cold eyes. Because they are afraid. They won, but it did not feel like winning. They lost more soldiers on Earth than they had lost in 100 years. They lost ships. They lost generals. They lost their belief that they could not be beaten. And they know that somewhere out there, humans still exist. Humans who remember how to hurt them. The workshop was silent. Even the machine seemed quieter. The Dominion did not just destroy Earth, said. They erased it. They told everyone in the galaxy that humans surrendered peacefully. that we accepted our death. They rewrote history because the truth was too dangerous. What is the truth? Asked. Stood up. She walked to a cabinet and pulled out a small metal box. Inside was a single item, a photograph. It showed a young girl with bright eyes and a bigger smile, standing next to a slightly older girl who looked serious and determined. The truth, said, holding the photograph, is that humans never stopped fighting. We fought until there was nothing left to save. And even then, even when Earth burned, we made sure the Dominion would remember us. We made sure they would have nightmares about us for 1,000 years. She put the photograph back in the box. My sister died so I could live. Captain died so the ships could escape. Everyone I loved died so that a few hundred of us could carry the memory forward. She looked at. That is why I survived. Not because I was the strongest or the bravest. I survived because they sacrificed everything to save me, and I owe them. I owe them a debt I can never repay. Stood up slowly. He was so tall that his head almost touched the ceiling. I came here to get armor fixed, he said. I found something else instead. He paused. The Dominion is mobilizing again. I have heard reports from the outer systems. They are gathering their fleet. His expression did not change, but something flickered in her eyes. They say they are coming to protect Coalition space from pirates, continued. But that is a lie. I know what their real target is. What? Asked, though she already knew the answer. Humans, said. They are coming to finish what they started. They want to erase every last one of you from the galaxy. They want to make sure no one ever remembers what you did to them. Was silent for a long moment. Then she picked up her tools and turned back to the armor. Then they will fail, she said quietly. They failed before, they will fail again. Looked at her with something new in his eyes. Respect, hope, and maybe a little fear. You sound very certain, he said. Did not look up from her work. Humans always sound certain when we are about to do something impossible. It is one of our many annoying qualities. For the first time since he entered the workshop, smiled. I think, he said slowly, that I would like to see what happens next. Word spread fast on a space station. Too fast. Within 2 days, everyone in the lower decks knew that a warrior had found an Earthborn. The news traveled through whispers, through coded messages, through looks exchanged between strangers. Knew she had made a mistake, had not betrayed her, but others had seen him visiting her workshop. Others had noticed the way he looked at her now, with respect instead of arrogance. In a place where secrets meant survival, attention was deadly. On the 3rd night after her conversation with, received a message on her private communicator. It contained only coordinates and a time. She knew who had sent it before she even looked at the signature. She left the workshop at midnight and walked through the forgotten corridors of Neva 7. These passages were not on any official map. They had been built by refugees and smugglers, people who needed places to hide, knew them by heart. The meeting place was an old storage room that had been converted into a bar. There was no sign outside, no name on the door. You either knew about it or you did not. The man behind the bar was named. He was in his 50s, with a shaved head and tattoos covering both arms. Before the Earth War, he had been a demolitions expert. Now he ran a network of human survivors across Coalition space. You have been careless, said when sat down. His voice was calm, but his eyes were not. I know. Knows your identity. A warrior from a family that once conquered worlds. Do you understand how dangerous that is? Did not argue. She accepted the drink he placed in front of her and took a sip. It was Earth whiskey, real whiskey, made from grain that had been smuggled off the planet during the evacuation. There were only a few bottles left in existence. "The will not betray me," she said. "He has his own reasons to keep my secret." And when those reasons change, asked, when someone offers him credits, when the Dominion offers him favor. Before could answer, a new voice spoke from the shadows. The girl made a mistake. We all make mistakes. The question is what we do next. An old woman emerged from a back room. She was small, barely 5 feet tall, with white hair and eyes that saw nothing. Myra had been blind for 20 years, damaged in a battle that killed 2,000 Dominion soldiers, but her blindness had not made her weak. If anything, it had made her sharper. Myra had trained during the war. She had trained hundreds of young soldiers who became Earthborn legends. She was the closest thing had to family. Myra said, standing up, "I did not know you were here. I go where I am needed." The old woman sat down slowly, her hands finding the table without hesitation. "And right now I am needed here, because everything is about to change." Poured another drink and slid it toward Myra. "The Dominion is mobilizing. We have confirmed reports from 6 different sources." "How long do we have?" asked. "Weeks, maybe less." His face was grim. "They are sending an advance force to Coalition space. Officially, they say it is for protection. Unofficially, we know the truth. They are looking for us, for all of us." Myra lifted her glass but did not drink. "The Earthborn have been hiding for 40 years. We scattered across the galaxy, took new names, built new lives. We thought that was enough. We thought they would forget." "They never forget," said quietly. "No," Myra agreed. "They do not, and now we must decide, do we keep hiding? Do we run again, find new holes to crawl into, or do we stand?" The question hung in the air like smoke. A younger man entered the bar through a side door. Did not recognize him. He was maybe 25, with nervous eyes and quick movements. "This is," said. "He is one of our contacts in the Coalition military. He has news." Sat down at the table. He looked then at Myra, and something changed in his expression. Fear mixed with hope. "The Coalition knows about the Dominion fleet," said. "They are scared. The Coalition military is not ready for a real war. They have ships and soldiers, but they do not know how to fight the Dominion. Nobody does." He paused. "Except you." Us asked. "The Earthborn, the survivors. You fought them for 11 years. You figured out their weaknesses. You invented tactics that no one else has ever used." Leaned forward. "The Coalition wants your help. They are sending Commander to negotiate." Made a disgusted sound. His species helped the Dominion conquer a dozen worlds before the Earth War. Now they want our help. "Things change," Myra said quietly. "They are not what they used to be. The Dominion abandoned them after Earth, threw them away like broken tools. Many of them hate the Dominion now." "I do not care about their politics," said. "I care about survival. If we reveal ourselves, if we come out of hiding, the Dominion will hunt us with everything they have." "They are already hunting us," said. "Whether we hide or not, they are coming. The question is whether we let them find us on their terms or ours." The room went silent. Everyone looked at Myra. The old woman set down her glass. Her blind eyes seemed to stare at something far away. "I have spent 40 years hiding," she said slowly. 40 years pretending to be nobody. 40 years watching the galaxy move on while Earth became a forgotten story. I am tired of hiding." Myra started. "No," her voice was sharp. "We did not survive just to grow old in shadows. We survived because someone had to remember. Someone had to carry the fire. But carrying is not enough. Sooner or later you have to use what you carry." Thought about Captain. About all the faces she saw in her dreams, the faces of people who had died so she could live. "I agree with Myra," she said. "I am tired of hiding too." Looked at them both for a long moment. Then he laughed, a rough sound without much humor. "I knew you would say that, both of you." He finished his drink in one swallow. "Fine. If we are going to die, at least we will die fighting." A message came through on his communicator. He read it and looked up. "Commander has arrived on the station. He wants to meet with representatives of the human community." "Tell him we will meet him tomorrow," Myra said, "at neutral ground. And tell him that if this is a trap, he will discover why the Dominion learned to fear us." nodded and left. Stood up to leave, but Myra's hand caught her wrist. The old woman's grip was still strong. "You are not ready," Myra said quietly. "I have been fighting my whole life." "You have been surviving your whole life. Fighting is different. Fighting means you accept that you might not survive. It means you stop running." Myra released her wrist. "The Dominion is coming. When they get here, they will bring everything they have. The same fleet that burned Earth. The same soldiers who killed your sister." His jaw tightened. "I know," she said. "Do you?" Myra asked. "When you see them again, when you smell the smoke and hear the screams, will you be able to fight? Or will you freeze? Will you run?" Did not answer right away. She thought about the nightmares that still woke her in the night, the sounds of explosions, the weight of her sister's hand slipping from hers. "I do not know," she said honestly. Myra smiled, a thin curve of her lips. "Good, that is the right answer. Only fools are certain about war." She leaned back in her chair. "Go home, rest. Tomorrow everything changes." Walked back to her workshop through the dark corridors. When she arrived, she found waiting outside. "The Dominion is coming," he said. It was not a question. "Yes." "What will you do?" Opened the door to her workshop. Inside, his grandfather's armor sat on the table, fully repaired, gleaming like new. "Your armor is ready," she said, "and I think it is time I built something for myself." Looked at the armor, then at her. A decision formed in his yellow eyes. "Then I will help you," he said, "whatever you need." Nodded slowly. For the first time in 40 years, she felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope. The Dominion came without warning, just like they had come to Earth 40 years ago. The first sign was a tremor that ran through the entire station. Then the alarms started screaming. Red lights flashed in every corridor. Voices shouted orders that nobody could hear over the chaos. Was in the fabrication bay when the attack began. She had been working for 3 days straight, barely sleeping, building things she had not built since the war. Weapons, tools, devices that existed only in her memory and in the nightmares of the Dominion. She grabbed her equipment and ran toward the command center. The corridors were filled with panicking civilians, station security trying to maintain order, and confused soldiers who had never seen real combat. Met her at the entrance to the command center. He was wearing his grandfather's armor, now upgraded with modifications had designed. His 4 hands held different weapons, each one deadly. "The Dominion has sent a strike force," he said. 20 ships. They are demanding immediate surrender." "They always demand surrender," replied. "It never works." Inside the command center, chaos ruled. Station officials were arguing with coalition military officers. Screens showed images of the Dominion fleet hovering just outside weapons range. The enemy ships were massive, black shapes against the stars, designed to inspire fear. Commander stood in the middle of the room trying to bring order. He was like, but older, with scars on his gray face that spoke of many battles. When he saw enter, his yellow eyes widened slightly. "You are the Earthborn," he said. "I am one of them," replied. "And right now, we need to stop talking and start fighting." "Fighting?" One of the station officials laughed nervously. "Against the Dominion, we have 3 defense ships. They have 20. Walked to the main control console. Her fingers moved across the interface, accessing systems that should have been locked. "Numbers do not matter," she said. "Strategy matters. Will. The willingness to do what your enemy thinks is impossible." She pulled up a display of the station's defense grid. It was standard coalition design, meant to repel pirates and small raiders. Against the Dominion, it would last about 10 minutes. "This defense grid uses pattern-based targeting," said. "Predictable, easy to counter. The Dominion knows exactly how it works because they designed the technology you." She made several adjustments. "I am changing the targeting algorithm to something they have never seen." Commander stepped closer. "What are you doing?" making it human. Across the station, other Earthborn were moving into position, had rigged the lower decks with traps using techniques developed during the Earth War, explosive packages hidden in places the Dominion would never expect, false corridors that led to dead ends, weapons that did not exist in any military database. Myra sat in a communications center, her blind eyes closed, her hands resting on the console. She could not see, but she could hear everything. Every channel, every frequency, every whispered order from both sides. "The Dominion is launching boarding parties," she announced. Her voice was calm, steady, the voice of someone who had survived worse than this. "They are targeting the main docking bays." Was with her, his young face pale with fear. He had never been in a real battle. None of the coalition soldiers had. "What do we do?" he asked. "We teach them," Myra said. "That is what Earthborn do, we teach." She touched her earpiece. "All coalition forces, this is Myra, I know you are scared. The enemy is bigger than you, stronger than you. They have done this 1,000 times, but you have something they do not have. You have us." The first Dominion soldiers landed in Docking Bay 7. They were tall, armored figures with weapons that could cut through steel. They moved with the confidence of conquerors who expected no resistance. They found waiting for them. "Welcome to Neva 7, he said, standing alone in the middle of the bay. "I hope you enjoy your stay." He pressed a button on his wrist. The explosions came from everywhere at once. The floor, the ceiling, the walls. The Dominion soldiers were prepared for enemy fire, prepared for defensive positions, prepared for anything logical. They were not prepared for a man who had spent 3 days turning an entire section of the station into one giant trap. In the command center, watched the battle unfold on the screens. The Dominion was pushing forward, but slower than expected, much slower. "They are confused," Commander said. His voice held something like wonder. "I have never seen Dominion forces this confused." "Humans do not fight fair," replied. "We fight to win. There is a difference." The Dominion commander aboard the lead ship was a creature called an overseer. He had lived for 300 years. He had personally conquered 40 worlds. He had been there when Earth burned. He watched his forces struggle and felt something he had not felt in centuries: doubt. "These are the humans we were warned about," he said to his subordinates. "I thought the stories were exaggerated. I was wrong." "Should we send reinforcements?" one of them asked. "Send everything," the overseer ordered. "I want this station taken within the hour, and bring me the humans alive. I want to know their secrets before they die." But as more Dominion soldiers poured onto the station, they found the same traps, the same impossible tactics, the same willingness to sacrifice everything for even the smallest victory. Moved through the corridors like a ghost. She carried a weapon she had built herself, something between a rifle and a plasma cutter. Every shot was precise. Every movement was efficient. She did not waste anything. Fought beside her, his 4 arms working in perfect coordination. He had never seen combat like this. The way was direct, brutal, honoring strength above all. The human way was different. It was patient, clever, deadly in ways that did not announce themselves. "Your species frightens me," admitted between engagements, "and I mean that as a compliment." They reached a junction where, and a group of young coalition soldiers were pinned down. Dominion fire kept them trapped behind a barricade. "We cannot get through," shouted. "There are too many." Studied the situation for 3 seconds. Then she pulled something from her belt and rolled it down the corridor. "Cover your eyes," she said. The device exploded in a flash of pure white light. The Dominion soldiers screamed, temporarily blinded. In that moment of confusion, was already moving, firing, crossing the distance that should have been impossible to cross. When opened his eyes again, 5 Dominion soldiers were down and was reloading. "How did you do that?" he asked. "Practice," said, "and 40 years of very bad dreams." The battle lasted 6 hours. 6 hours of fighting in corridors and junctions and maintenance tunnels. 6 hours of explosions and screams and the smell of burning metal. When it ended, the Dominion strike force had been destroyed. Not pushed back, not repelled, destroyed. Of the 20 ships, only 3 escaped to report what had happened. On his flagship, the overseer stared at the reports with disbelief. "A space station," he said. "A poorly defended space station held by refugees and mercenaries, and we lost." "The Earthborn are still alive," his subordinate said. "They have been hiding for 40 years, and they are still dangerous." The overseer was silent for a long moment. Then he made a decision. "Contact the home fleet," he ordered. "Send the extinction fleet, the same ships that burned their planet. It is time to end this once and for all." On Neva 7, the survivors gathered in the command center. Coalition soldiers, warriors, human refugees. They were tired, wounded, grieving their dead. But they had won. Stood by the window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Dominion was preparing their response. She knew it would be overwhelming. They would bring everything they had. Myra came to stand beside her. The old woman's hands were shaking slightly, but her voice was steady. "You did well today," Myra said. "It is not over." "No, it is just beginning." Myra touched his arm. "But you remembered how to fight. You remembered who you are." Looked down at her wrist, at the seal she had hidden for so long. "They will send the extinction fleet," she said. "The same ships that killed, the same soldiers who burned Earth." "Yes." "Then we need more than traps and tactics. We need an army." Myra smiled, a thin curve that held both sadness and hope. "We have spent 40 years scattering across the galaxy," she said. "Perhaps it is time to gather again. Perhaps it is time for the Earthborn to wake up." Nodded slowly. The message went out that night, sent through secret channels that only humans knew. It reached colonies and stations and ships across coalition space. It reached hiding places that had been silent for decades. The message was simple: Earth remembers, and Earth is calling you home. They came from everywhere. From mining colonies in the outer systems, from trading posts on the edge of known space, from ships that had been wandering the galaxy for decades, from hiding places that nobody knew existed. They came alone and in groups, old soldiers with white hair and old wounds, young people who had never seen Earth but had grown up on stories of it, engineers and doctors and teachers and fighters. Humans who had spent 40 years pretending to be nobody, finally ready to be somebody again. The station filled with them. Every day, new ships arrived. Every day, more humans emerged from the shadows where they had been hiding. Stood at the docking bay and watched them come. Some she recognized from the war, some she had never seen before, but all of them had the same look in their eyes. The look of people who had been waiting a very long time for this moment. Kept count. By the end of the first week, there were over 3,000 humans on Neva 7. By the end of the second week, there were 8,000. "I thought we were scattered," said, standing beside. The young apprentice had not left her side since the battle. "I thought there were only a few hundred of us." "That is what we wanted everyone to think," replied. "The 847 Earthborn were just the beginning. We had children. We taught them. We prepared them. We made sure that even if we died, humanity would continue." Not all of them could fight, but all of them could help. The engineers worked on the station's defenses, improving everything with technology that had been developed during the Earth War and refined over 4 decades. The doctors set up medical centers. The teachers became tactical advisors, sharing knowledge that had been passed down through generations. Commander watched all of this with amazement. "I have seen armies," he told. "I have seen warriors from a dozen species, but I have never seen anything like this. They organize themselves without orders. They work together without commanders. It is like they share one mind." "They share one purpose," replied. They are fighting for something more than victory. They are fighting for memory. On the 15th day, scouts reported that the Dominion extinction fleet had entered the system. 40 ships, the same ships that had burned Earth, the same ships that had ended a world, gathered the Earthborn in the station's main hall. Hundreds of them, young and old, standing together for the first time in 40 years. The original survivors wore their seals openly now, the black circles visible on their wrists. The younger ones wore new symbols, designed to honor those who had come before. Myra stood at the front, supported by. She was tired from the weeks of preparation, but her voice was still strong. 40 years ago we made a promise, Myra said. We promised the dead that we would survive. We promised them that their sacrifice would not be forgotten. We kept that promise. We survived. We remembered. But now it is time for a new promise. She turned toward the window, toward the stars where the enemy waited. We promise that Earth will never truly die. We promise that wherever humans exist, wherever we gather and work and fight, that is Earth. Not a planet, not a place, a people, a spirit, an idea that cannot be destroyed no matter how many ships they send. Stepped forward. She removed her gloves slowly, showing her seal to everyone in the room. The mark that she had hidden for so long now felt like a badge of pride. I was 16 when the war started, she said. I watched my parents die. I watched my sister die. I watched my planet burn. For 40 years I carried that weight alone. I hid. I ran. I pretended to be nobody because it hurt too much to remember who I really was. She looked at the faces around her. So many faces, so many stories, so many people who had carried the same weight. But we are not alone anymore. We were never alone, we just forgot how to find each other. She raised her wrist, showing the seal. This mark means we held the line. It means we bought time for others to escape. It means we were willing to die so that humanity could live. Today, we honor that sacrifice. Today, we show the Dominion what it truly means to fight humans. The hall erupted in cheers. Not the organized cheers of an army, but the raw emotion of people who had been silent for too long. People who were finally ready to speak. Outside, the Dominion fleet moved closer. Their commander, the overseer who had watched Earth burn, studied the station on his screens. They cannot escape, he told his officers. They have nowhere to run. This ends today. He did not know about the other ships. The coalition vessels that had been modified with human technology. The warriors who had sworn to fight beside the Earthborn. The armada that was forming in the shadow of the station, hidden from sensors by devices that humans had invented during the war. Stood on the bridge of his ship, wearing his grandfather's armor. He thought about the stories he had heard as a child, the stories that were not myths after all. For my grandfather, he said quietly, for the truth. The fleet powered up their weapons. On Neva 7, walked to the command center. She sat down at the communications console and opened a channel to the Dominion flagship. Her face appeared on every screen in the enemy fleet. The overseer stared at her. He recognized something in her eyes. The same look he had seen in human soldiers 40 years ago, right before they did something impossible. This is of Earth, she said. Her voice was calm, steady, human. 40 years ago you burned my home, you killed my family, you thought you ended us. She smiled, and there was nothing warm in it. You just made us angry, and we have had 40 years to build. The stars ignited. The human-modified ships came out of hiding, their weapons blazing with energy signatures the Dominion had never seen. The fleet struck from the side, their warriors roaring battle cries in a language that predated human existence. The station's defense grid activated, firing in patterns that no computer could predict because they were not designed by computers. They were designed by humans who had learned to fight against impossible odds. The overseer watched his fleet crumble. Ships that had survived 1,000 battles exploded around him. Soldiers who had conquered worlds fell to weapons that should not have existed. How, he demanded. You are refugees, you are survivors, you have nothing. On the screen shook her head. We have everything, she said. We have memory, we have purpose. We have 40 years of planning and building and waiting, and we have something you never understood. What? Hope. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it ended, the extinction fleet was no more. The overseer died on his bridge, killed by a weapon designed by a woman whose sister he had helped murder 40 years ago. When the silence came, when the last explosions faded into the darkness of space, the survivors gathered once again. Stood at the window of the command center, looking out at the debris. Somewhere in that wreckage were the remains of the ships that had burned Earth, the ships from her nightmares, the symbols of everything she had lost. She felt a hand on her shoulder, stood beside her, his 4 arms relaxed for the first time since she had known him. It is over, he said. No, replied. It is just beginning. The Dominion has more ships, more soldiers, more worlds. This was one battle. There will be others. But you won. Turned to look at the hall behind her. Humans and stood together. Coalition soldiers exchanged stories with Earthborn veterans. Young people listened to old survivors, learning histories that had almost been forgotten. We survived, she said. That is what humans do. We survive, we adapt, we remember, and we never ever give up. Myra came to join them, guiding her carefully. The Dominion will send more fleets, Myra said. They cannot accept what happened here. They will try again. Let them try, said. We will be ready. She looked at her wrist, at the seal that marked her as Earthborn. Then she looked at all the young faces who had never seen Earth but carried its spirit in their hearts. We are not just survivors anymore, she said. We are not just hiding. We are building something new, something that cannot be burned or bombed or destroyed. She smiled, and this time there was warmth in it. We are building a home, not a planet, a people, a future. Knelt, a gesture of respect from a species that once conquered worlds. My people would be honored, he said, to help build that future. Helped him stand. She took his hand and shook it in the human way. Then welcome to Earth, she said. Wherever we go, whatever we face, that is where Earth is, in our hearts, in our memories, in our hope. Outside the window, the stars were quiet. The battle was over. The dead were mourned. The living began the work of rebuilding, of healing, of preparing for whatever came next. And somewhere in the galaxy, other humans looked up at those same stars. They had heard the message. They knew what had happened. They knew that the hiding was over. Earth was awake, and humanity was coming home.